Next item on the agenda is the the Back the Blue flag. This is a flag we got a request from TR and some other folks to raise this, in particular raise it for September 11th. I think it's, as many folks have pointed out, I think Jim pointed this out as well, this particular flag, and I don't know for sure if it's the flag, but the one with the blue line through the American flag, in my opinion, is a violation of the flag code. Flag code is 4 USC Section 8, I think. And that sets forth how the American flag is to be displayed. It's supposed to, how it's going to be hung on a wall. Whether any flag can be higher than it, the answer is no. Any flag can be equal with it. The United Nations flag can be equal with it, but can't be higher. State flags have to be lower, and so on. There are so many different rules. As a practical matter, that law is never going to be enforced because of First Amendment rights. The Supreme Court has looked at this. So when someone burns the flag, that's a First Amendment exercise. At the same time, it's a good policy to follow, in my opinion. I think it's a way of us showing respect for that American flag, to abide by that flag code. And one of the provisions of the flag code points to the Back the Blue, the not putting anything, marking anything on the flag. So I think it's a violation of that code, which is one of the reasons I wouldn't support flying it. Another reason is because I felt that it was too much of a reaction against the Black Lives Matter flag. So is there some flag that we could fly that would show support for, certainly for the 9/11 first responders? Absolutely. Maybe there's another flag, but I don't know a better flag than the American flag for that. But I'm certainly open to that for the 20th anniversary of that event. But I wanted to just open the discussion with that. Does anyone from the council want to be heard on the Back the Blue flag and whether to fly it? Okay, seeing no one, would anyone?
Mike, if I could just add real quick, in case people didn't notice, all town flags were flown at half-mast on 9/11.
Right.
In respect for those people that were lost.
Right. Amy Hogarth Chase's iPad. There we go.
Okay, am I up? Okay.
Yes.
Well, good evening, council members, everyone who's way up past their bedtime. Thank you for staying on. I have to say I'm kind of here, from the letter Mr. Breer wrote, kind of a public invite, and I'm going to be honest with you, it seemed like it was a public invite for discourse and an argument. It was publicly proposed by you. But I'm here to defend myself, although I feel I shouldn't have to. More importantly, I am here to explain the request that was put in myself. You should not hear what my intentions are from someone I've never spoken to. I want you to hear it directly from the horse's mouth. This is how it went down. I received an email asking if I would support a request to put up a Back the Blue flag on 9/11 to remember and honor those first responders who died on 9/11. I didn't have to give it a second thought. Absolutely. And I don't know anyone who, if asked to do something to honor those on that day, would say no. For you to say, Mr. Breer, that it had nothing to do with 9/11, shame on you. It has everything to do with that day and only that fateful day. 9/11 is a day that stands on its own, one of the worst days in American history. It is a day where all Americans come together. It is the opposite of what you had portrayed. Nothing else mattered on that day, and nothing else matters every year on the anniversary. 9/11 didn't pick and choose who it would take that day. It took every different kind of American. It is the only day where we are all one. It has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter or anything else. And I'm sorry that you made it political, but we didn't. You said that, the first responders are not oppressed, Mr. Breyer, and that our high tax dollars pay for their salaries. Mr. Breyer, they gave up the biggest sacrifice one could give. They gave their lives. They gave their lives saving others. Someone whose profession is to risk their life to save others, I don't think can be quantified. It is priceless. As for the convenience, again, that you asked, that it was requested a couple of days after the Black Lives Matter flag went up. The timing is, it was 9/11. No one here can argue what the date is. It is said that raising the Black Lives Matter flag is appropriate for what is currently going on. Yes, and so I'm here agreeing, absolutely. But I also thought that it was appropriate to fly a flag on 9/11 to honor those on 9/11. To say that this small group of Barringtonians are content to ignore injustice, Mr. Breer, there's a lot of talk about you creating this diversity and inclusion, and yet I find it ironic that in public writing, you literally bash people. And I'd actually like to ask you, what is a Barringtonian, if you would like to answer?
People who live in Barrington.
Okay, well, again, I asked that because you said it in a negative manner. I find it interesting because I'm sure you did your due diligence and your research when you were trying to choose a place to raise your family and move to, and you chose Barrington. Mr. Breer, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I like to think all people have good intentions. I like to put myself in other people's shoes, try to get their viewpoint, try to understand where they're coming from. It's sad that as a resident here, and more importantly, an elected official, you find the worst in the people who are your neighbors and are supposed to represent. The saying, if you have nothing nice to say, then don't say anything at all, is a good motto always, and especially in today's world, and most specifically from a public figure, elected official. In the future, Ms. Breer, I would appreciate you asking your constituents whom you represent what their intentions are before you so brazenly decide for yourself. For you to make me and others sound like we were horrible human beings and like we asked to raise the Confederate flag or the KKK flag we mentioned earlier. It made me so angry and it made me so sad. And I had to come in front of all of you tonight to just look you in the face and say, I said yes to that to honor and remember those from 9/11. Plain and simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Dolcinos. He's unmuted. You're unmuted.
Okay. I just, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, there is an alternate first responder flag. It's a black field with a blue, or you could get one with a blue and red stripe simultaneously on that. So I think that would be in compliance with the flag policy, as it wouldn't appear to be an altered American flag. So there is alternate flags that can be used to represent them. That's just point of order.
Okay. Thank you. Kelvin Mazurski.
Sorry, am I on?
You are. Go right ahead.
Okay. So, somewhat confused with the choice of the flag with the blue stripe representing the police versus the first responder flag that has the black and white stripes with one red stripe to represent firefighters. For 9/11, with all the firefighters that were lost, that's the flag that should be considered. I'm confused. Why the flag for police? If you guys can elaborate on why that flag and not the one for the first responders with the black and white stripe field with the red stripe. Being a firefighter, being so many firefighters lost their lives on 9/11, that's the obvious choice, and I don't understand why it would be conflated with the choice of flags for police. We love our police. They should be respected and honored. But if you're talking about a 9/11 tribute, I don't understand the logic there. And if somebody can explain that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Libby Gilday.
Hi, I would just like to respond to some of the points that were brought up. And again, thank you for your time and for staying so late. We all really appreciate it. I would agree definitely that the back to blue flag feels like a very strange choice in an attempt to honor 9/11. And obviously, I don't think anyone here, or I would hope that no one here is trying to assume the intent of anyone who wants that flag. I don't think anyone here is calling anyone else a racist. Or trying to assume that we can read the minds of people who have that particular desire. That being said, the people who drive through our town and see that flag are not just going to be our neighbors that know us. They're also going to be people who are getting their impressions of our community by looking at that flag. And the fact of the matter is that back to blue is currently being flown by a lot of white supremacists, and it does have that association. And putting it directly in juxtaposition with a flag that is celebrating a community that has been deeply hurt and deeply marginalized, and a community for whom their identity is not something that they've chosen, that to me feels like it makes a very specific political statement. That might not be the statement that people are intending it to have, and that might not be the statement that someone personally associates with that flag when they see it. And I completely respect that there are people who want to honor 9/11, and obviously I think that's very important. But I would agree that back to blue feels like a very questionable choice for that. And I think that I would worry at what people would think driving through our town, seeing those two flags together. I don't think that sends the message that everyone here has spoken of in terms of honoring 9/11 survivors.
Thank you. Trinky, please.
Like Kelvin, I'm a little confused, and perhaps this is a really dumb question, and maybe Mr. Dalchinas can answer it for me. Who exactly are the first responders? I've assumed that first responders are firefighters, EMTs, and police officers, and certainly all of those groups ran toward the towers on 9/11. So wouldn't we, when we honor 9/11, which I would hope we would do every year, wouldn't we want to honor all three of those groups?
Okay, thank you. Paul Dalchinas.
Yeah, I believe 60 police officers lost their lives when the towers came down. So I think there was a shared loss from both law enforcement and firemen. And usually in the term of first responders, it is an inclusive group that considers all of those members. There is a black flag that has a stripe across the center that's half red and half blue. So you can find almost anything you want to honor any type of group. So that might be a compromise in the situation.
Mike, if I could jump in for 1 second, and I think you tried to explain it earlier. The U.S. flag code says that you cannot take the U.S. flag and in any way alter it and fly it. And so if we absolutely should follow that code, we should not fly the blue or the red, back the blue or back the red, or any of those flags that have a depiction of the American flag that's been altered. All that being said, I'm confident that we can find an appropriate flag to honor first responders in the next 11 months so that for the 20th anniversary of 9/11, we can show appropriate respect for all those that lost their lives in that tragedy.
You know, the other thing I would like to say too is that one way to honor our first responders is through flying a flag. But what I'd really like to do, and I've said this before, is when we get out of COVID, I would really like to have one hell of a party. I want to have a big cookout somewhere and invite all of our town employees, because we have to remember that these folks were going into all of our firefighters and police officers. Every time they went into a building, they could get infected and they could bring that home to their family. And I'm grateful. I know we're all grateful to them for what they've done, and all of our employees working under these extraordinary circumstances. So I think we can find a way to honor them before 9/11/21. And I would like the town manager to put something in the budget for a giant barbecue of some kind. So Paul, you still have your hand raised. Maybe that's by mistake. Yeah, he's not showing. So does anyone want to make a motion, and we don't have to make a motion, to discuss and act on the flying of the Back the Blue flag? Okay, seeing that there's no motion, we can move on to the next item on the agenda.